staffing standpoint while providing that. And we think this is a very solid number to start with, and logistically to be able to recruit and conduct this training will get us out of the chute in a more manageable fashion. And we'll find out if we need more or less, as Commissioner Stauber pointed out. We have not dismissed that the workload may be over forecasted. We're dealing with an unknown here, and we're putting some assumptions together that we think have validity, and we're going to fulfill our administrative role, but we want to do it in a measured, practical fashion while being sensitive to the almost 9,700 or 10,000 individuals that will be eligible for this insurance or will be converted from what is MinCare today. And we're really focused on that piece of the puzzle. And hopefully, because we haven't ever had, I don't believe, negative feedback, we've done an exceptional job in our performance, and that's a credit to our financial worker team and to the leadership of Health and Human Services. So again, we're focused on, as I believe Commissioner Stauber said, getting out of the chute, bringing additional resources to bear to address this issue that is, whether partially or unfunded, however you want to look at the mandate, that's the mandate we're dealing with. And I appreciate that the board has set aside some resources if we need to utilize those. Hopefully we can minimize that impact as we know more about the enhanced federal eligibility and reimbursement side of the equation. And we're focused now on moving forward. And the reason for today and having the discussion is if we can get, again, moving forward to begin the recruitment process and the training process, I think we can leverage these resources in a very good fashion. And we do need some additional resources is our impression. But again, we continue to refine this. We're committed to keeping the board informed as we move ahead after this initial decision.
Thank you, Administrator Gray. Did you have your hand up earlier, Commissioner Forsman?
Just one comment, if I may, Mr. Chair. You know, the board letter, I think, is a little bit misleading, at least to me. And we're, and I'll go to, and I know, and I'm fully aware that the whereases mean nothing. It is the resolves that mean something. But the whereases are a little bit misleading to me. And I'll take the second whereas, where it says the Minnesota legislature has passed legislation authorizing this expansion of medical assistance is allowed in the Affordable Care Act. I don't think authorizing is the right word. I think mandated is the right word. I think authorized, if it was authorized, well, then we could all say, you know what, we're not going to do it. States, set up your own program up here in St. Louis County, or maybe at the head of the lakes, you know, the Arrowhead area. You do it, and we won't do it there if it was authorized. But it isn't authorized. It's mandated. And I think that there should be a second whereas in there following that one, where it says the minute, so it's clear. Because in the future, and I think that I've been relatively outspoken in the sense that I'm fearful of what may happen in the future. And I think the second whereas should say, whereas the state of Minnesota has mandated counties to do their work in delivering the Affordable Care Act. I think that whereas should be in there, because go 10 years out, this, if I'm right, and I hope I'm wrong, I really do. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that this is a tremendous success. I, like Ann, believe in prevention and everything else. If this truly leads to prevention and those kinds of things, I would be extremely happy. But I think that whereas should be part of it, that because of the fact that we're mandated to do this. Although Janet commented that, the penalty is that if we don't do a good job at it, the state, quote, the state may take over our business. I'd be happy with that. I'd be just happy with that. Please take it over. That would make me happier than anything. Janet, thank you for saying that. But the other thing that I guess as I look at it, the prevention piece, and I'll stop with this thought, if you can follow my thought through, the prevention in screening and all those other things, that's only going to occur to those people that are making under $15,000 $856 if they're a single person. That's under $15,000, under $16,000. That means that if you made $7.75 an hour, you work 40 hours a week, you'd be over that limit. You're basically in poverty, but you wouldn't be eligible for any of these programs they're talking about. If you had a family of four, both earners, if they made more than $7.90 an hour, that would give them an income of $32,864. The cutoff at 138% of poverty is $32,499. You wouldn't be eligible if you made $7.90 an hour, two-person income of a family of four. Or one earner making $15.80 an hour. I mean, that means that there's gonna be a whole mess of working-class people, and I mean working-class people that go every day, grab their lunch pails, grab their stuff, that are not gonna be eligible for any of these services. Those people are either gonna be looking at one thing, they're gonna be looking at increased healthcare costs with their insurance programs that aren't going to be part of this, or they're gonna be paying $699 in tax every year for not having health insurance, when they're not making a lot of money, I mean, right now. So I don't see the prevention thing helping people. I guess I should be blessed in the sense that most of the people I know are above this poverty level. Most of the people I work with, certainly, I believe everyone in this room, and most of the people I work with in the county, most of the people that I worked with when I worked in the mine, most of the people I worked with when I worked in the city would not be eligible for any of these things. They will not be getting those preventive services that you want. Their health insurance is going to increase, or they will pay the tax. So I'm not as excited about the preventive care that the average person is going to get. I don't think they're going to get it. I think they will have less chance of getting it. But I see that, I'm happy that those people that do fall under this are going to get that preventive care. I think that's a good thing. Keeps them out of the emergency room, brings our costs down, et cetera. The fact that our health insurance clinics are going to be able to take in, and our hospitals and doctors will get reimbursed for the care that they give through this program. But, and I said I would stop with that, the preventive portion of it, and I will. But I do have some real concerns about where we're going, and I do have real concerns about the way that this board letter was written, because it is not accurate in my mind.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsman. Before we continue on, just want to remind the board that we are now addressing, comments are addressing the issue of the amendment before us, and the amendment language compared to the original refers only to the changes in the employee complement and the corresponding budget items. Commissioner Jewell.
Well, I just had another question for Ms. Bushy. It's my understanding, just the little I know, but I would sense that the 9,000 people we're talking about adding, so we're talking about adding more people on assistance, doing the financial stuff. Many of these people are the working poor. They're people who are going to have income. If you have $30,000 in income, people are working, I assume. I mean, do we have a sense of who these people are at all? They're not, number one, they're not on our caseloads. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Jewell, there are some, the 9,736 individuals are folks that right now are somewhere between 75% of poverty and 138% of poverty. Right now, if you're under if you are under 75% of poverty, you would be determined eligible for medical assistance. So the Minnesota legislation increases that to 138% of poverty. So that's the individuals. There is also some individuals right now that are on Minnesota Care. And because of the change in the eligibility guidelines, those individuals who are right now on Minnesota Care would transition to medical assistance. So there is a segment of the population that's on Minnesota Care that will become eligible for MA. There's a segment of the population that is not currently eligible for MA that would become eligible. And I don't know, and I can't say it's this person or that person, but 138% of poverty, I think Commissioner Forsman was citing some statistics, and I trust his numbers, that for a family of 2 or a family of 4.
For a point of information, if I may, Mr. Chair, I did the math. I took 138 times the $23,550 that you had. That number for a family of 4 is $32,499 if this calculator is right. And then and then for a single person, it was $11,490 is what you had in the board letter. And I multiplied that times 1.38, and it came up with 15,856, again, if this calculator is right, for eligibility. Anyone under that amount would be eligible for the Enhanced Affordable Care Act.
So I think, I don't think you need to answer this further. I think it can be generally figured out that if you make $30,000 as a family, the likelihood that you're working in a low-income job at $7.50 an hour, 2 of you, is fairly great. And that, I just think that part of what this is doing is increasing the number of people who have health insurance in our community, which, from my perspective, is a real positive. I agree with Commissioner Forsman that there are probably people we're going to miss, and that they would be important to catch as well, and we're going to have to find out how that works out in the end. But I mean, the working poor have long been not covered by health insurance, and they work in jobs that can't, if it's a small business, they can't afford it. You know, there are all kinds of reasons they don't get it. But this gives those people an option. And I actually know quite a number of them. Many young people I know don't get health insurance because they work really low-income jobs and they can't afford it. So it's just one opportunity. A great opportunity is now parents can cover kids up to 26 on their health insurance. But I just want to make sure that, I mean, obviously we're covering people who don't have any income or next to no income. I mean, the people who live on GA for years got something in the range of $3,000 a year to live. If you can imagine living on little tiny sums of money. We've long provided services to very poor individuals.
Thank you, Commissioner Jewell. Commissioner Stauber.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Dahlberg, I just, to the point of Commissioner Forsman's comment on the second whereas, Mr. Chair, I'm looking for guidance from either Administrator Gray or our attorney on, in this amended resolution, from changing the word authorizing to mandating, and how would we do it?
Commissioner Stauber, what I would allow as the chair of the board, we have right now an amendment before us, but I would allow you to, I don't like friendly amendments, but I would allow you to amend the amendment. So if you'd like to make a motion at this point, you're welcome to do so.
So make the motion to change the word authorizing in the second whereas to mandating.
I would support that.
Thank you.
All right, so we have an amendment to the proposed amendment before us, and it was motioned by Commissioner Stauber, seconded by Commissioner Forsman, to change in the second whereas authorizing to mandating. Commissioners' discussion. Seeing no discussion, all in favor with the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, similar sign. All right, and so the amended motion before us that we are now discussing includes the mandating.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. The Commissioner Dahlberg. The one thing that, for my 11 years on the board, I've argued that we're managers. We're not policymakers. Folks, today shows us, if ever before, that we are managers. We're not policymakers. Commissioner Stauber, I want to thank you for your work, for your diligence on this, working with Director Bushy and administration to come back with something that is, I think, a very thoughtful approach. We in county government, we don't do things with a lot of flash or fanfare. And even though I read the article this morning, I left my soapbox back on the range, and I don't bring that to county board meetings with me. But as we look at things and we work on managing things, it is important that we do our due diligence. And in this case, that due diligence included talking with a lot of our state lawmakers who are policymakers. And in talking with federal lawmakers who are policymakers. And the thing that I've learned about the Affordable Health Care Act is that there is more uncertainty than there is certainty. And as we at the county level are really forced to deal with it, it is our job to deal with it in the most cost-effective manner possible. And I think this phased-in approach is just that. It's the most cost-effective process that we can take. I certainly am going to respect Director Bushy if she comes back and says, 12's not cutting it, I'm going to need some more people. I'm going to hear those words, because if the past is a good indicator, which it is, she's not going to cry wolf unless there's a wolf at the door. And so as we move forward with this, implementing what is a federal mandate, what is a state mandate, whether we believe that this is going to work or not, the onus is on this board and on our staff to make it work to the best of our ability. So with that said, I'm pleased to see that at least at this point in time, we've taken a phased-in approach, and that we're going to continue to assess this process. I'm certain that we'll be receiving updates from our Health and Human Services Department throughout this process, because again, there is a great degree of uncertainty here. I spoke with a senator as recently as a couple of days ago, a state senator, who told me we put $28 or $29 million into the technology. There should not be any new people necessary at the county level. And then I talked to our folks, and I find out that technology wasn't even for this. It was for other things. There is certainly a lot of, uncertainty out there. And we can debate whether it's a unfunded mandate or a partially funded mandate. Whenever the federal government tells me that the check is in the mail, I don't check my mailbox every day for it, because I really don't expect it. The taxpayers of St. Louis County receive back roughly 38 cents of every dollar that we send to the federal government. And every mandate that comes our way is always underfunded. Not unfunded, but underfunded. And the truth is, as we look at these dollars, folks, they're all taxpayer dollars. It's just that my big concern is that property tax dollars, property taxes being the most regressive tax that we have, that system was not the intended target of the Affordable Health Care Act. And it should not be where the brunt of the cost is placed. So
the verdict is out on this, folks. But we're going to do the best we can with it, and I have every confidence in Ann and her people that that's going to happen. And if in the future there's additional resources necessary, as a manager, and as this board being the good managers that we are, we're going to be taking those action steps necessary to make sure that we are fully implementing what we have been mandated to do in the most cost-effective fashion. Thank you, Chair Commissioner Delver.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Seeing no other commissioners, I'll make a comment just as to the amendment as it pertains to the employee complement. And I would just say that, I trust the numbers that were coming forward from the Public Health and Human Services and the work we've done. And I appreciate Director Bushy's sincerity when she says, I don't know what the real number is. I think there's honesty in that, but yet at the same time, I think we're getting at a number that's getting close. And I wanted to thank Commissioner Stauber, who chairs the Public Health and Human Services, for your yeoman's work. I know you put a lot of time into this. Administrator Gray, too, I know that you've been working on addressing this, as all commissioners have been, many commissioners behind the scenes on this. And just also to Janet Eichholz and Beth Manley, and I'm sure there's many behind the scenes, but, I don't like the overall proposal, but the overall, I have some issues, but at least as to this amendment, I wanted to address that I'm confident that we've done the best that we can to do a responsible measure as to the complement. So I'm supportive of that. Commissioner Jewell.
I'm always struck by this when Commissioner Nelson brings up the fact that we only get 38 cents of the dollar, but in Texas, they get $1.48. So they're stealing it from us. They largely steal it from us by not covering their kids, not covering their adults, and not doing things in the schools that they need to. So it'd be nice if Texas would start doing what we're doing, and we'd get more money. So thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you, Commissioner Jewell. So for the amendment before us, all in favor with the sign of aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, similar sign?
Aye.
Okay, we have one opposed, and that is Commissioner Forsman, and of course, Commissioner Rocker is not with us today. So then we would move on to the resolution itself, which would be the amendment that we just passed. Commissioners, a discussion on that. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair Dahlberg. And I'll just say that briefly, that I'm very pleased to be part of this effort. Just this ballpark number of about 10,000 is about 5% of the people of St. Louis County are now going to have the opportunity to have really decent health insurance. Some of them for the first time in their lives. And they will have the opportunity for preventive care. They will have the opportunity to have a primary doctor and to be served the way that many of us have throughout our whole lives. To not have to use the emergency room as their doctor. So I think while, yes, it's not perfect, and it is a mandate, and it's an unfunded mandate, it does move us forward in the county and in the state and in the country to provide better comprehensive health insurance for everybody. And that's what we should be doing. That is the just and right thing that we should be doing as Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Commissioner Forsman.
And just so it's said, and so that I guess that it's clear, is that I'm upset that, not upset, no, that's not the right way to say it, is that I guess I'm struck by the fact that, as Commissioner O'Neill has stated, that it is a good thing that you have, roughly another 4,000 some people that'll be eligible, or another 6,000, which I got to look at. I put my thing away already there. Another 6,000 that'll be eligible, bringing the number up to probably around 11,000 people. But remembering this county has roughly 200,000 people in it there. that means that that many of the working class people that I know, and I realize that I've been very fortunate in my life, my family has been very fortunate in my life, none, and I mean none, of the working class people that I work with, now don't get me wrong, I know people that are going to be eligible, but of the people that I work with, people that I call my friends, the people I hang around with, in every walk of my many years of the different jobs I had as a truck driver, as a bus driver, as a county commissioner, as a city councilor, as a miner, as a mechanic at a dealership. Pick any of the things that I've done in my life there and stuff. None of the people that I hung around with are going to be eligible for this. None of them. And they're going to be looking at increased health care costs because of the Affordable Care Act, or they're going to be looking at losing their health care, or they're going to be looking at a penalty of $699 every year that they don't provide themselves with insurance. And most of them, not most of them, many of them are struggling. They struggle. They've got children, they've got those things. So while I'm happy for the people that will be getting some of those dollars that are all tax dollars, every nickel of it is tax dollars, whether they go to the federal government and income tax. And people can pick on me, but my wife and I paid out, better not be put an exact number, we paid out over $30,000 in income tax. I'm blessed. I was able to do that because Ernestine and I made lots of money last year. And then we paid out a lot in property taxes. And I'm glad that some of those dollars are coming back to help those less fortunate than me. I think that on this board we have generous people. In this room we have generous people that give to your churches, to your charities, those kinds of things. I think we all do that because we care about our fellow man, and we expect those dollars we send into the federal government, to the state, to come back to those less fortunate than us. But at the same time, those people that work for a living are also trying to pay their property taxes. They're trying to do those things that they're mandated to do. They might not like paying them. They pay their income tax and everything else, but not all of them have lots of money. And right now, they're going to give additional dollars to do something that the state of Minnesota should be taking care of they charge an awful lot, in my opinion, in sales tax, in income tax. The federal government charges a lot in income tax, all those things. Shouldn't those dollars be used for this? Why are we in a situation where we are forced to take and put property tax dollars onto the table? And that's what we're doing right now. We're putting property tax dollars on the table to take care of, in my opinion, if we're talking 11,000 some people, we're talking closer to 5% of the population, and basically slapping the face of 95% of the people or 94% of the people or whatever. I don't see it, and I just cannot support it. I just can't. I mean, like I said, I maybe come from a different background of the working class yeah, and yes, at this point in my life, and I'll acknowledge it, my wife and I make good money. But you know what? When we had 4 kids and I was an apprentice mechanic and my wife was going to St. Scholastica here and she was driving every day, we were not rich people, but we were paying the same amount of taxes, not the same amount of taxes in dollars, but in our percentage. We are putting out plenty to take and help this nation and this country and this whatever, and this county make it. Been a homeowner since, I'll just stop with this. I've been a homeowner and a property taxpayer since 1971. And you know, taxes, property taxes are the most regressive form of taxes there are. And right now we are shifting on a federal program onto property taxes with this motion. I cannot vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsman. I had a question before Commissioner Nelson. Ann, could you inform me on the one issue as far as you mentioned that some that are now on Minnesota Care will be transitioned to medical assistance. Those individuals that were on Minnesota Care because of their income levels, 75 to plus, were they paying some premiums? Were they putting some dollars forward as far as into Minnesota Care? Was that a sliding scale for, and now will they be not paying that under the medical assistance?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Dahlberg, other commissioners, yes, there is a segment of the population that is currently on Minnesota Care that will become eligible for medical assistance. Under Minnesota Care, the premiums are based on ability to pay and income. I believe the premium for the individuals, within kind of this range was about $4 a month, the premium, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Dahlberg. To my dear friend, Commissioner Forsman, my vote for this is not an affirmation of my support of the Affordable Health Care Act. It is simply an acknowledgement of the fact that we have been put in this position to administer it to the best of our ability. I too hope that somehow this country can figure something out of what is, I believe, an act that was truly made without knowing the details, without really fully vetting this process. I hope that something can come from this, because for this, the greatest nation on earth, to not have affordable health care for all of its people, that is a travesty. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would, for my two friends on the other side of your seat there, I want to give them each a big stick today, because Commissioner Forsman, at least for today, has mastered the art of speaking softly, and Commissioner O'Neill's got it down pat, okay?
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Other commissioners? I'll make, I guess, two areas of comments to the resolution. I have difficulty supporting this, and I come from, I guess, two issues. It's the funding issue is one, and then and the second one is it really gets down to efficiency and effectiveness. And so on the first issue, make no mistake about it. One moment, I'm sorry. Okay. As to the funding of this, make no mistake about it. This is an unfunded mandate, however you say. And I was asked, would I be happy? We've got 75% that they're going to be pitching in the federal government to help us with this. And they said, would you be happy at 100%? And it's the whole issue that it's not their money. It's our money. They're not making money in Washington, D.C. We're sending it to Washington, D.C. We're getting it back, and this language about matches drives me crazy. We have to match the money that we've sent to Washington, that they're giving back to us to help fund the programs that they mandated upon us. And if we don't do it the way they want us, they're going to sanction us or penalize us a lot of times. And that's why it irks me. And I see Commissioner Nelson smiling, but that's the craziness. And in no way would you think of a system that is like this. And my comments today are not an indictment on the Affordable Care Act, and I know some people have used the pejorative Obamacare. It could be just as well be a Democrat or Republican. It just does not make sense, the federal solutions, this top-down solutions. And then it goes into my next comment is efficiencies and effectiveness. And I think we've talked today about everybody, there's an expectation, a certain threshold for health care and getting solutions, but the idea that we have 535 representatives in Washington, D.C., and we, out of those 535, only have 10. And we've got Mitch McConnell, we've got Harry Reid, we've got Nancy Pelosi making decisions for Minnesota, and it's a system that doesn't work, that under any imagination that you teach in a management school, it's not, it's not appropriate. And I was looking at some issues here. I just keep, I want to applaud the local level. Solutions are at the local level. And I was just up at St. Scholastica where we had the adult services up there. And there was a room full of individuals that work for St. Louis County, and if you put them together and add the time, because I think there was maybe, I don't know, I think there was 150 people. You could not only go back to the time of Columbus, but you could go back to the time of Christ and leadership and time that knows. And these are people that see what the real solutions are down on the ground. And we know we've solved problems locally. I mean, the idea that Washington's going to tell us how that we're going to do it in Minnesota, and I think, Commissioner Jewell brought up a great comment about how this doesn't work is you got Texas, I mean, you got free riders in this, and that we're subsidizing them in this type of a program of a one-size-fits-all. And I wanted to just get to a couple items here that I think, we've shined at, that when there's issues, we come to the table and address them. And I think we could do this with the health care on a state level. And, but, we had violence in the adult foster care issue. And the county went and we addressed this at the table, went to the state. And we're addressing this right now. Methadone clinic issue. Our department, our human services is solving this on the ground. Opiate prescription. We're working on this on the ground. I mean, it's not going to be and the beauty of this is to watch other states, to watch that Mississippi or Texas, you mentioned Texas doesn't work. So then we don't want to follow Texas. But to have one size fits all, and usually it's to the lowest common denominator as far as standards. And I think Minnesota has the greatest standards. The Health Insurance Committee, I mean, we know what we're doing as far as self-insurance. And we also knew that the problems were, coming forward with healthcare. I mean, we knew the costs were getting unsustainable. And it was 2 years ago we had Governor Pawlenty introduced a resolution. Now, that created quite a controversy that went on there, and it had to do with general assistance medical coverage and the idea that that we were going to slide some people into the Minnesota care, and we knew there would be some problems. We knew that people with mental illness wouldn't be able to necessarily have the foresight to get the premiums, but we had a working situation locally. And so what it tells me is we started that path 2 years ago. And at the same time, the federal government was, and they raced us to the finish line, and they said, Minnesota, this is your solution, before we got there. And some of the ones that were commenting back there are the ones commenting today to address Minnesota healthcare. We have Representative Huntley that was back then in 2010, and he was reacting to Pawlenty. But at least, the way I look at it is, and I know I'm a little on a monologue here, but I look at it that we're one family, the state and the county. And I know sometimes we talk about mandates, but we're like brothers and sisters. We fight, but at least if there's some problems, we can get together with the state. But it's a little more difficult when you get together with Washington, D.C. To solve things. So, I have some problems with it. It's more this issue that I think the heart of the issue is, efficiencies and effectiveness are at the local level. And two more thoughts as far as I am worried as far as piggybacking on Commissioner Forsman. I think sometimes we're losing we're hitting too hard the working class. We're hitting also the work ethic. And I talked to a business person, and they had just raised their wages from $9 to $11 an hour for an employee. And it was actually up on the range. And the employee kind of said more or less, great. Now what am I going to do as far as health care, and also as far as child care? And because there's this expectation that you're going to get this. And her problem was, the issue is now she got bumped on her income too high. And we're almost pushing people that they don't like the idea to achieve to that next level. And so how do we come together to create, we're losing the work ethic, so how do we get to efficiencies and effectiveness in delivering services for the truly needy and being able to distinguish the ones that just need to, to reach out and excel themselves and to move to that next level. So, I have some problems obviously overall with this, but back to that earlier amendment, I understand where the public health came from as far as the complement. Thank you. Other commissioners? Okay. Looks like having no more commissioner comment. All in favor with the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, similar sign. Aye. So the motion passes, let's see, I had 4-2. Commissioner Forsman, Commissioner Dahlberg voting in the opposition, and we have Commissioner Rocker that is not with us. And so at that point, we are done
Move
with
to
our.
adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Nelson, second by Commissioner Stauber. All in favor with the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, similar sign. We are adjourned.
There we go.
Tough one. Not a fun one, huh?
Yeah, what the.
Commissioner Stauber. Here. Commissioner Rocker. Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
And Chair Commissioner Dahlberg.
Here, and as we mentioned earlier, Commissioner Rocker is in Washington DC working on county work. And so with that, we will move into the consent agenda. I understand there's one item wishing to be pulled down already beforehand. So, well, why don't we move the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Forsman, seconded by Commissioner Jewell. Any items wishing to be pulled down? Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Dahlberg, I would like to pull down item number 1 under the Health and Human Services Committee.
Okay, I'm going to move down item number 1, and I'm going to place that, since Director Bushy's been here with us all morning, at the front of the regular agenda. And so with that, we have before us the consent agenda. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor with the sign of aye? Aye. Those opposed, similar sign. And I would turn it over to the Health and Human Service Committee, Commissioner Stauber, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got, in front of me, the board letter, reference the position reallocation of info specialist to child support officer. And I'll move that.
Second.
And Administrator Gray, would you frame the question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Director Bushy is here to talk to any specifics. The action before the board is a request to reallocate a current information specialist 2 classification respect to that of a child support officer 1 position. Consistent with our practice, our best practice of reviewing any positions before automatically filling, which is not something we do in the county. We always make an assessment of do we have the right position, the right fit to meet the needs of the time. In conducting a review of a vacant information specialist 2 position, it became clear that our needs would be better served based on workload and type of work to reallocate that position to a child support officer role. It should be noted that this is not an increase in the total complement to the department, but rather a reallocation of positions from an information specialist 2 to a child support officer. There is a pay grade difference or a compensation factor difference, and that's typically the criteria that we use. If it is more than 3 pay grades, we do bring it before the board, as is our past practice. So there is an incremental cost to this that will be absorbed in the Public Health and Human Services Department budget.
Thank you, Administrator Gray. Any comments? Commissioner Nelson.
I guess I have a question of Director Bushy, I believe.
She's right over there.
Director Bushy, in reading the background on this, it speaks to the medical assistance expansion. So this move too is associated with the Affordable Health Care Act.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yes, anytime we have an open position, we always take a look at, should we just fill it as is? Is there a different need? Can we fill it in a different way that meets better, delivers customer services and meets the needs? So when we took a look at this, we may have, quite honestly, we may have asked to reclassify it had nothing been changing on our child support side. But when we took a look, when we know that if there are more individuals eligible for medical assistance, and by law, if they are on assistance, they have to be a child support case through the county, whereas if they're not on public assistance, they have the option of doing it kind of in the private sector or through the county. When we looked at that factor, that was really kind of the thing, okay, we might have gone there before, but now knowing that we have the potential of having additional cases coming, we definitely want to look at converting this position. The cost difference is $3,000 a year cost difference. And the fact is that for a child support officer, the work that they do qualifies for a 67% federal reimbursement. And so I'm trying to rebalance for you, Commissioner Nelson, a few more pennies coming back from the federal government to the county. And so the net increase is about $1,000 a year. And certainly we can absorb that within, and we'll deliver better customer service as a result.
May I continue, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Stauber. A couple of questions, and then I'd like to follow with a statement, but I noticed that between 286 and 1,144 potentially new cases. Is that in addition to what we heard earlier today, which, was the 10,000 number? Are these part of that, or are they in addition to that?
Commissioner Nelson, that's a very good question. They would be a part of. While they are dealt with, on a different caseload, we have our income maintenance financial workers with caseloads, and we have child support officers with caseloads. Many times those are the same individuals on those two caseloads. So because these folks would be eligible for MA, then that is the criteria that if they are a custodial or non-custodial parent, then they would deal with that child support case through the county. Does that make sense?
So there's a lot of wash back and forth okay. And Chair Commissioner Stauber, I certainly don't think that $3,096 is necessarily impactful when you look at a personnel budget that's around $41 million in Health and Human Services. It does seem to be like a very small fly on an elephant's back, but I think, we have to look at each and every one of these pieces that comes through that are part of what is a bigger picture, because I really, truly do not believe that we are going to get to the end of 2014 and somehow magically be able to handle that caseload without having people to manage it. That's just my gut feeling. It's what I'm being told from what people whom I consider experts in the industry, although admittedly there's a lot of angst out there, in dealing with the Affordable Health Care Act. But as we look down the road and absorbing these positions, I think this is, quite frankly, going to be the new reality. Okay, and I want to make sure that at each and every step we measure this to make sure that this board completely understands what that new floor is, because essentially that's what it is. It's the floor at which we have to operate above. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Forsman, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the fact that you used the thought, because I saw this on consent and I thought, I can vote for it on consent, and I think that what I wanted to hear, and I think I heard it reading between the lines, that it was tangentially influenced by the Affordable Care Act. You were actually looking at it beforehand, so in other words, that's what pushed you over the edge. So like I said, I'm not anxious to take and do the federal government's work for them, or the state of Minnesota's work for them when they do not supply dollars, to do it. But because of the fact that I think you've been looking at this prior to this, I was okay with voting for this. So, and I still am okay with voting for this.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner Jewell.
So, Director Bushy, I just had a couple, so the job of a child support officer one is, what do they do?
What do they do? Oh, Commissioner Jewell, they help to determine paternity, so to ensure that, both parents are financially responsible and for the care of the child. They work with the courts to establish orders, child support orders then, and then they work to enforce and collect those child support orders as well, so that both parents are, providing for the medical, financial, parent needs of the child.
So part of what's happening here, I assume, is there's a group of people who will become known to us who are non-custodial parents who may not be paying. Is that so they come to us and we assure that those things are figured out, but we didn't necessarily know that before. Is that what's happening?
Commissioner Jewell, that's a very good question, and it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that as individuals become eligible for medical assistance, and then, we try to do that more holistic approach, and we say, do you have children, and are you paying child support? It's certainly possible that we would identify some individuals that would now be responsible for child support. And we also know that when individuals are paying for child support, that there is less reliance on kind of financial assistance from the cash basis, the Minnesota Family Investment Program and some other things. So when we have, both parents contributing to the financial needs of the child, we have less single mothers on other assistance programs. So I think that has been proven over time to be true.
So it may well be that $1,000 of expense brings more money to kids that keeps them out of the system in a sense. So.
And Commissioner Jewell, it is a statistic that for every dollar that St. Louis County invests in child support, we bring $4 and something. I'll give you the exact number, but about that in support to children, financial support to children.
Okay, Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you, Chair Stauber, and thank you, Commissioner Nelson, for bringing it down. As we were talking, I drew a picture of an octopus because I think as we go along, we're going to find that the arms of this are going to really be extending. But a couple comments on this is that this is going to be it's just going to continue to start because it's not only the child support officer, but you also will have the attorney's office will be involved in this. Because I do family law, but what happens, and then to Commissioner Jewell's question about, is it delinquent parents? It's not necessarily delinquent parents because it's a 4D case, and so what happens naturally is that if there's a change in income or somebody brings a petition, either side could reduce it or increase the petition, and it could be a person that's the non-custodial parent could be current with their child support. But because that custodial parent happens to be receiving public assistance, and you can see the public policy behind it, why should the government pay money if the non-custodial is not paying or to get that? But now the child support officer is going to be involved. The attorney's office gets copied on this. Sometimes the attorney's office comes down into there. So I mean, this is going to continue to build. And then to Commissioner Nelson's question about why is there 1,400, and I think we said 9,670 are going to come in through the act. It's that that just happens to be a percentage of the individuals on the overall 10,000 that would be divorced that would happen to be on this. But you just hang on for the ride because it's going to be a while and we're going to see a lot. I think a lot more things coming in on this. And thank you. Thanks, Commissioner Chair.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Unanimous. And Mr. Chair, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Health and Human Service Chair Commissioner Stauber. And so that next, it would move us into the Environment and Natural Resource Committee chaired by Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Dahlberg. We have one item in front of us today under the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. And then my thunder is in the Central Management Committee, but I'll gladly see that go to Commissioner Jewell because I'm so pleased about it. But the item that's before us today is the termination of 2013 funding allocation for the North Soil and Water Conservation District, and I would move it. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. I'm going to turn to Administrator Gray to frame the issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, the action before the board today is a request to terminate the contract and further funding allocation for the balance of this year to the North St. Louis Soil and Water Conservation District. This request was brought forward by the chair himself that we consider this terminating and remaining redirecting the funding allocation for the balance of the year, which is $25,000 for the second half of 2013, and as is proposed in the resolution, that would be returned, if you will, to the Shoreline Sales Fund or the Environmental Trust Fund. As the board is aware, we've been discussing for some time the amount of allocations going to any number of public agencies, including both the North and South Soil Water Conservation Districts. We've been on that path. However, we did retain the amount of funding that was scheduled to be reduced at the $50,000 level for this year. You have copies of the contract that's currently in place that we put into place with the commencement of each budget year. That's attached. You also have some details as a bit of a reminder of the discussion we've had regarding the level of funding going to public agencies and specifically, again, the soil and water conservation districts. So with that, I would return it to the chair for a discussion on his concerns and regarding the contract and the basis for terminating the balance of the contract.
Thank you, Administrator Gray. And I do have some individuals here that would like to speak to the board. But in fairness, I'm going to at least state my reasoning for bringing this here because I think that we've heard you, my fellow board members have heard my discussion in the past. But the more I've looked into this and the more that I see, if you go into the resolution, you will see, and I would refer you back to in your packet. Then please refer back to attachment A, which is contractor responsibilities, and I've really laid out the places where I have concerns for deficiency. And that's why I brought it forward. The other piece is that I don't know, several years back as a funding mechanism and as a budget measure, we started paying for these positions out of the Environmental Trust Fund. That Environmental Trust Fund was created with very specific language. And I don't know that the Environmental Trust Fund would necessarily endorse an entity that considers itself to be an enforcement entity. The Environmental Trust Fund, as was laid out in statute, was absolutely laid out to be something that would be available to the county to assist people and through these processes, and that is not as I see it here today. So that is the reason for bringing it down on my part. I would allow any other commissioners at this point that wanted to make a statement in advance of asking our citizens who've asked to speak to this. Seeing none, I'll turn to the sign-up sheet and afford anyone else an opportunity after the sign-up sheet if they so desire. Gary Rantola, and I'm going to ask you, please, as you come forward, to state your name for the record, if you would.
Okay, Gary Rantola, Soil and Water Supervisor, North St. Louis. My address is 4790 Sailor Road in Bears.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of the best place to begin here. State statute 103A, B, and C refer to that we do get some funding through the county. And more than that, my concern is what we do, we are involved with maintaining the clean water resources of the state. And of course, Keith, as you know, a lot of our clean waters come down through the St. Louis Bowage and Bears River being one of them. And I'd just like to point that out since I'm a Bears resident, and we are the source of a lot of that clean water. It is our mandate to protect those resources and to give guidance to people in their construction projects, whatever, and so forth. Currently, on the stream and water protection, we're working on the Gilmore Creek level. We are also doing probably one of the first things that has been accomplished in the state is we are working with Cleveland Cliffs on a stream restoration. Instead of it being a straight ditch now, we're putting back all the curves and stuff in there to reduce erosion issues. We have worked in the past, in fact, right across from my house and not due to my initiative, on the Embarrass River, on erosion and sedimentation control. We also work with Camp Vermilion, lakeshore stabilization, and a whole raft of other things. I won't get into each one of them, but our office manager, Connie, has a list of those that we are currently involved in. If you look at it from a dollar standpoint, the $25,000 that we are allocated for the rest of the year, $50,000 for the whole year, which we received part, we are bringing back to the county or into our projects that enables us to develop a budget of $325,000, or a return of over 6-1 on the monies you have allocated. We feel that we are a vital part of the conservation effort. We work currently now with 3 schools, hopefully with 4 schools. We would like to add on 1 more employee, and if we have this reduction in funding, it's going to be tough for us to do. I would like to see some more clean water measurements made in our area, particularly on the Embarrass River, because it may be affected by the copper nickel mining. And I would like to see us get some baseline readings. We're not going to be able to do that if we don't get the normal funding stream that we are going to. And I'm trying, as you have, you're trying to shorten my comments and not give you so much detail as to become a boring presence right here, although my scooter is comfortable.
Very good. We appreciate your comments, Gary, and certainly your passion for serving within the Southern Water District there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Questions, Mr. Rental? Seeing none? Thank you again. Chuck Painter?
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson, fellow commissioners. I'm new on the North St. Louis County Soil and Water Conservation District Board. I started in January and serving District 4, which is included Cherry and Iron and a few other areas. I attended meetings since September. And I'm very impressed with the professionalism and the people that are also supervisors on the board, Gary being one of them. They all are heavy into conservation, have devoted their careers to working with lands and waters. At these meetings since September, I've seen nothing but cohesion between Connie, Paul, and the supervisors. I am new on it though, so there's a lot of things I'm learning. And you might ask me a question I might not be able to answer, but I did go with Paul about 3 weeks ago. on a field trip, and we observed the area in Hibbing called the Maple Hill Park. And he was instrumental in working with local citizens and with students to make a nature trail, remove some invasive species, buckthorn, and erosion control. And I was just impressed with the layout of this land. The public can use it, it's for walking. It was just a real refreshing thing to see within the city limits of Hibbing. He also pointed out some areas that were controversial as far as wetlands. There was some hunting lands that he had to have the owner with some contractors revert the soils back to wetland status because they made some high ground without permission. And it seemed to work from what I see. And then he also showed me some other areas that he's working on where there's wetland control, wetland restoration that he's trying to maintain, and he was watching over to make sure that they accomplished what they were supposed to do. Some of these cases, the DNR would actually tell Paul, okay, we noticed a violation, and Paul would have to go in and work with the landowner and try to fix it. So a lot of his work in communication with the public is not very easy to deal with sometimes when the public realizes they have to spend some money to fix some problems they created. I asked him point blank, I said, what are your feelings about mining? Because I want to get an overall picture of conservation and mining, because mining is the lifeblood of northern Minnesota, as far as northern St. Louis County. I enjoyed his comment. He is, of course, coming from a conservation perspective, but he did say that he believes that with proper public and private intervention, mining can be accomplished safely, and when mining is done, the land can be restored as close to possible as what it was. Not going to never be restored exactly. He wasn't against mining with proper controls. That's all I have. He's had any questions of me, and I just see this funding cut as hurting citizens and other entities in our St. Louis County. But I understand what you're trying to accomplish. You have to balance your budget.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. Questions from Commissioner Forsman?
Chuck, and you know, and since you're new on the board, and I know Gary and I have had a good relationship forever, I think so. But since you're new on the board, some of the things that you said kind of underscore my concerns that I have. And one of the concerns that I have is that I think that Paul, the concern is Paul Ojanen to me, just so you know. And the concern is, one is that I think that he is an expert at what he does. I really think that when he is in his role in trying to establish, as you said, getting rid of those invasive species in Hibbing and those kinds of things, when he's putting the curves back in the river and stuff like that, I don't think you're going to get anybody that knows any better how to do that and how to take and help people to do that. I think that as a commissioner, that was the role that I thought that Paul Ojanen should be taking. That's the role that I absolutely support him on. Where I have concerns are, I never thought of the North Soil and Water as in an enforcement agency. I actually got this out of attending, not only reading the paperwork we have, but also understanding that it is the DNR that is supposed to be doing the enforcements. And I think that they have put Paul Ojanen in a situation where he has ended up doing their dirty work for him. As you said, it's not an easy job when he needs to come in and tell somebody that, hey, you know what, you fill that wetlands, you got to take and restore that wetlands that you filled in, et cetera, and he ends up being in a situation, I don't think you should do it. I think that the board, yourself and others on the board, should be telling Paul, hey, we're not an enforcement agency. If the DNR wants to be the bad guys, which that's their job, let them be the bad guys. They are the enforcement agency. And I don't think that the North Soil and Water should be an enforcement agency. One of the things that one of the issues that I got involved in was the Corey Winger situation, and Gary and I have had this conversation already. Corey Winger, at that time, had 26 people working for him there and stuff at CC Winger Excavating. I saw pictures prior to him buying the property from the air where all of the wetlands that were disturbed on an aerial map before he bought the property. He was required, yes, so it said, he started parking his equipment on those properties, and he's a company. He has lots of equipment. He did do some things that I think Corey Winger did some things that were not proper. And I think that he worked hard to try to correct them, but there seemed to be just an overzealous, in my opinion, this is my opinion, I think Paul Ojanen ended up being overzealous in trying to get Corey Winger. When his dad, and I'll use this as an example, and I haven't shared this with anyone else, when his dad, who helped Corey get the business going, was working for him, and he was just, I mean, he's dressed up, driving a truck and everything else, and they're up by Cook working on a project there and stuff. Paul came up to his dad, not knowing that it was his dad, and says, I'm gonna shut this guy down. That attitude is the attitude that I have a real concern with. When a person goes from an advisory position and thinks that they're going to take and go from an advisory position and thinks that they're gonna be a renegade cop. And that is where I have my problem with Paul. He's an expert. He is smart. He knows what's going on. He should be an advisor to people. Anytime that he ends up in a situation where something is, I don't think he needs to be a tattletale. I don't think he needs to be an enforcement officer. I think that role is a role that's positioned with other people that by law. And so, my last statement on Paul is that 4 of us on this board voted to support mining under the best circumstances, under the guidance of the MPCA, under the guidance of everything. 4 members of this board at one point said that we supported the non-ferrous mining. There was a letter to the editor that came into the thing. Now, it wasn't written as Paul Ojanen, North Soil and Water employee. It was written Paul Ojanen as a citizen. And he said, I was one of the people that voted for it. He called me. He said, those people that voted for it, that was me. I'm not even going to, if the other 3 aren't offended, that's fine. I don't care. But he called me either stupid or criminal or both. To everyone that reads that rag called the Duluth News Tribune. I had a real problem with that. Never once has Paul ever called me and says, Mike, I didn't really mean that you're stupid or a criminal or both. I didn't really mean that. I was just passionate. No one on the board of supervisors that on the board said to me, you know what, Mike, I don't think you're stupid or criminal or both. And I know our employee said that about you, but we don't really think you are. No, nobody ever did that. So in the back of me, I tried to pull that knife out from the board of supervisors that put that knife in my back by having that employee, they can say that about mining, non-ferrous mining, said that anyone that supports it is stupid or criminal or both. That's a quote. You know, I have a hard time pulling that knife out of my back. I really do. So while I'm not, you know, I guess I'm okay with the fact that dollars go to North Soil and Water. I really am. But I want to see them go for the proper purpose. And right now, I see you as a board directing a renegade cop rather than taking his good qualities, reining them in. And I know Gary says that you tried to rein him in. But like I said, still haven't heard that comment from the board saying, Mike, we're sorry that our employee called you criminal or stupid or both. And I might be, but I don't know that I am. So if you're wondering how I would, how I feel, I'm still hurting from that. It bothers me. I don't like to be called in public stupid or criminal or both because I support non-ferrous mining. I just hate it. So anyway, I'll stop with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsman. Chuck, I do have a question about one of the things you said, and I wrote this down, and I hope I got it right. Paul went, he brought you to a place, and he had to have them put it back to wetland. And see, that's the concept that really has me concerned. He had to have them put it back to a wetland. He had to help them develop a plan that would comply with the DNR's order. That's what I'm looking for in North Soil and Water. I'm looking for that. Mike didn't need to tell me the comment from Mr. Winger, because Mr. Winger told me that comment himself, and I verified it through a third party that was there. I'm going to put him out of business. I don't need someone who is receiving taxpayer dollars, that, and that's what these are, okay? Because we could use these in a lot of other ways, that's using taxpayer dollars to try and put someone out of business, to simply make that statement. It was so egregious and outlandish that I was taken aback by it. But again, he had to have them put it back to wetland. And I don't know how exactly he said that to you, but that's how you stated it here. And that's the piece that I look to the Soil and Water, and I have to tell you, our South Soil and Water Board and our South Soil and Water Director, R.C. Boheim, my district, along with Commissioner Forsman's and Commissioner Rocker's, folks, more of my district is in South Soil and Water than is in North Soil and Water. More of my commissioner district. Do you know how many complaints I receive out of South Soil and Water? I can count them right here. That many. Not one have I ever received about RC and his work. Okay? On the opposite side of that equation, it's I would say that 20 a year would be a pretty good approximation. And I have tried addressing those things. But until I see some results, I'm troubled with spending taxpayer dollars if I'm not helping taxpayers. And that's just where I'm at on that part of it, Chuck. And that's, I wanted to go back to your part of the statement, which was he had to, okay? Which no, he's supposed to be helping people get through what is a really difficult process when they have a remediation plan. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to find the plants. It's not easy. You get a shoreline remediation, and in many cases, you can't even buy the plants that are necessary to remediate the shoreline. We know those things. I've been trying to work with greenhouses to get them to grow those plants through extension. I'm passionate about what we should be doing in soil and water. I just don't think we're currently doing it. And I wanted to say that we had part while you were still up here, because if you wanted to comment further on that before I turn to the next individual.
I don't know if that's the exact word, but he showed me what was done, and it looked like it was done appropriately.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know
Okay.
exactly. I didn't record it, but thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Jeff. Ryan Hughes. Good morning, Ryan. Good afternoon, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson, members of the board. I just have a brief handout and very few comments about this. My name is Ryan Hughes. I'm at 394 South Lake Avenue. I work for a state agency called the Board of Water and Soil Resources. And my purpose of attending today is to bring to your attention the state soil and water conservation policy. Essentially, SWCDs are in place to assist the state in implementing this policy. Our primary partner to do that is SWCDs. We are also partners with counties. there's very different relationship with the counties and the SWCDs, depending on the county that you're talking about. Many of these SWCs do the primary purpose of providing technical assistance, working with landowners to implement conservation projects on their property, doing water quality improvement projects on their property. And I just wanted to bring this policy to your attention so that you know what the purpose of the soil and water conservation district is.
Very good, thank you. Questions of Brian, Commissioner Jewell and Commissioner O'Neill, and I didn't see which order, so Commissioner Jewell first.
So Ryan, could you just talk, this issue of enforcement has come up. It's my understanding that people are ticketed by the DNR and Soil and Water has the responsibility, or maybe it's the possible responsibility, of working with landowners to solve that problem. Is that correct?
I am not the individual with the Board of Water and Soil Resources that oversees the Wetland Conservation Act enforcement. It is the one regulatory program that our agency does have. We have a wetland specialist at the Duluth office that is responsible for working with the local government units to administer the regulatory program. It's my understanding that if a DNR conservation officer provides a corrective order for a landowner, that both our agency representative as well as the local government unit representatives assist that landowner to correct those issues.
So, but it's not, so they are responsible for the corrective action. Do they enforce it?
They're responsible for working with the landowner to assist the landowner to address the DNR's corrective order.
Okay. Commissioner O'Neill.
Ryan, I missed your position, your job.
Oh, my title is Board Conservationist with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. I'm in the Duluth office. I'm the local field representative. I work with the counties of Cook, Lake, St. Louis, Carlton, Pines, and
And you're a state employee?
correct.
Okay, that was, I think that was
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
question. I thought I heard you say it the first time, I didn't hear it the second time. Commissioner Forsman.
And just so that I'm clear there, Ryan, because I had to step out there whether I wanted to or not. And your expectation for the local unit of government, the LGU, their stuff, their local government unit, your expectation of the North Soil and Water Board in this case there is that their employee would assist the landowner in corrective action as prescribed by the DNR. Is that?
That's my understanding. There again, there's a wetland specialist in the Bowser office that could better answer that question. My role is that the service that the SWCD provides is implementing our state cost share program, which we provide 75% financial assistance for SWCDs to implement soil and water protection and prevention projects. So that is my role when I work with SWCD.
And I think that's my understanding also is that that's the way that it worked there and stuff. I know, certainly we've got a great working relation with Bowser Chair, Brian Napstead there and stuff.
Yeah.
And Brian's a friend of mine there and stuff. So that the way you described it is my expectation and stuff, or not my understanding, not expectation, my understanding. And my understanding, with that understanding, comes back to the fact that I think that North Soil and Water does it different than South Soil and Water in the sense that I think that their employee thinks that he is a enforcement person out there, and that's where my greatest consternation, my greatest basic problem with the way that North Soil and Water is doing things. I think that if I thought that the board was willing to take some corrective action on their employee, I'd be very supportive of keeping those dollars intact, but I'm not seeing that. The last that I've heard is that, like I said, never even got an apology. Well, you're the wrong person to be asking this question, but I've never ever even heard an apology for those things that were, I think Paul has gone overboard, so.
Question for the speaker? Okay. Commissioner O'Neill. wanted to make sure it was a question for the speaker before I went in front of.
You might not be the only person, but whoever can answer this. So you are evaluated, the North Soil and Water Board must be evaluated by the state of Minnesota every year.
Correct.
Can you tell us in general how those evaluations have gone the last 2 or 3 years? Or do you have those with you, or could you send them to us?
We have a program called the PRAP. It's the Performance Review Assistance Program. And it's on a random basis that we check in with all of our LGUs that we provide grants to. And we do have a report from a PRAP that we did on North St. Louis, I believe in 2010. And that report is available on our website. I can provide it to you if you would like to see it. That information is also provided to the legislature. And that did identify some, it identifies things that they're doing adequately per state statute, and it also identifies some things that could be improved.
Deficiencies are identified within that
Correct.
then?
Correct.
Okay, and that's, what I would ask you is if you could send that to administration, and then administration will make sure it's forwarded to all commissioners.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question for?
Maybe a question as far as, what was the history of why we contribute, the support right now of the Soil Water Conservation District? It's
But that's not specifically to
maybe,
this gentleman.
okay.
So I'm gonna,
Okay.
and that's something that I guess we should ask administration, perhaps give us more of a detailed history on how and why and what the funding mechanisms are for soil and water. With that, I'm going to turn to Commissioner Stauber, who has waited a long time for his question or statement.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Nelson. I had the pleasure of attending the South Soil and Water meeting about a month and a half ago. And the positives that they were doing for the Southern District after the flood was phenomenal. And I was impressed. Their meeting lasted about an hour and a half. RC was talking about how they were helping and what have you. What I'm hearing from Commissioner Nelson and Mr. Forsman is there is a part of the North Soil that you made a comment that quote, they were going to put them out of business. Were you talking about a member of the North Soil and Water, about a company?
Point of information, CC Winger is a construction company up north. CC Winger is owned by Corey Winger. Corey Winger's father sometimes helps him out there. Corey Winger's father was working on a project up in Cook. Corey, at that time, their employee, Paul Ojinen, made the comment to Corey's dad, and this could be verified, made the comment to Corey's dad, not knowing that he was Corey's dad, just thought he was just a guy, and he made the comment to him, he said, I'm going to put him out of business, unquote. So.
And what I'm, okay.
And he worked very hard from that point on to put him out of business. Cost Corey a lot of money to stay in business with wetland manipulation, etc.
As I understand, the soil districts are technical advisory panels to assist in the soil and conservation and the erosion, etc. Commissioner Nelson, I cannot believe that you're receiving these complaints, because it really is concerning to me, because a technical advisory panel, in my mind, is to assist with the questions. And so when you're assisting to try to get to a resolution or a solution, there should not be an adversarial approach to it. So it's disappointing to hear that, especially when I see the good work RC's doing down here. And so I have great concern that there's a enforcement or a perceived enforcement from the North Board that really should be trying to work with the constituents and with the companies to make it work. So I've got concern that if they're operating that way and that taxpayer money is going to fund them, and if they're actually working against the taxpayers. In your instance, Commissioner Ford, with the example you gave. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Stubbert. Ryan, did you have more to add, or do we have any other questions for
I have
Ryan?
a comment, but I also have a question.
Okay, if you would go ahead and go with the question.
Ryan, it's my understanding all members of the soil and water boards are elected, is that true?
Correct.
So all of the members who've spoken to us are elected members of the North St. Louis. So they're responsible to the citizens.
Correct.
So one of the things I'm struck by is, so I also get not one single negative comment about the North St. Louis County Soil and Water District, but of course I don't live there, so I don't get them. And I wouldn't expect it. I'd expect those members who live in the district would get more of them. But so, I mean, you might not get them about RC in the South St. Louis if you didn't live in the South St. Louis County. The additional thing that concerns me a little bit is that this is a slap down for somebody for their right to speak out. Now, was that right smart? Maybe not. And I see members shaking their head. But there's a lot of times where it makes sense for me to hold my tongue rather than just let loose. But I think it would be a mistake to pull money from an organization which brings in $350,000 in an effort to chastise a particular employee for their free speech rights. And admittedly, Mike, if I read the Mesaba Daily News, which I do on occasion, I of course get all kinds of nasty comments made about me by people who write in the editorial column or others. I mean, I got a pretty thick skin. I kind of live with it. That there's nothing I can do about it, because both Commissioner Nelson and Commissioner Forsman have commented about the Duluth News Tribune. You survive it, as much as it irritates you. The other thing that seems fairly clear to me is that while people don't like some of the actions that North St. Louis County Soil and Water District has taken, when they're asked to do so by, or actually there's actually the DNR actually tickets somebody and says you have to fix this, that they go about doing that, and people are not always happy with that. We know that from people who get tickets for speeding. They don't necessarily like getting it, but it's because they've made a mistake or they've done something that needs to be different. So I am not in favor of this. I also talked to Commissioner Rocker, who has pretty positive things across the board to say about the North St. Louis County Soil and Water District. And he'll be back when we consider this in Ely to speak to why he thinks they do a good job, the work that he thinks they do, the money that they bring in, the trout stream renewal that has been done recently, in which we actually put some money into. All of these seem to me to be good reasons to do this. Now, if in fact the purpose of this is to get an apology from Paul for saying things about county commissioners, I just think that just is the wrong way to go about governing. So I can't support it, and I wouldn't do it for that reason.
Right, if we're done with questions for Ryan, I'm going to let him go here so that he's not stuck in the middle of something. Commissioner Thank you, Ryan. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Forsman.
Just so you know, one comment is that I think that I honestly believe that if I was supporting, and I'm not even sure that I am, but if I'm supporting the reduction of $25,000 in here, it's not because of Paul Ojanen taking and stabbing me in the back. And it's not if I had an apology from but it is the constituents that I represent. And it's not just Corey Winger. It's a person putting in a road going into a piece of property, and they literally created more wetlands than they disturbed, but they weren't quite the right way. And Paul came in and made them try to change them around at great expense. I mean, huge expense to the landowner in order to get this road in. A woman came in at a meeting that I was at. A woman came in and bought some property, wanted to put her horse barn up there, and wanted the horses to go out into the field and stuff. Paul had problems with those horses disturbing the wetlands and stuff. Excuse me? That's a domesticated animal, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things. It is that feeling that I'm going to be I'm not going to assist you in trying to get to where you need to go. I'm just going to tell you what you can't do and what you're not allowed to do, and I'm going to be an enforcement officer. That's where I have the problem. Paul is an expert at what he does. He should be out there assisting, as Ryan said. They should be assisting Bowser. He should be assisting the DNR. But he certainly should not be some type of out there looking for infractions and then trying to take and get them corrected. As Chuck pointed out, I found this and I'm going to take and get him to correct this and stuff. That's not his role. It isn't his role. And that's where the problem lies. I feel that if that's what we're doing to our constituents, if that's the role that we have that the North Soil and Water have determined their employees should be doing, then we shouldn't be funding them. Because now we're to the point where we are taking and we've got a board, an elected board, that is actually out there encouraging an employee to be a renegade cop. And that's what I see. Yes, I was offended by the thing, but I don't care if I've been in politics so long, I've been called everything. I think most of you are in here when somebody called me criminal for an act that happened down in St. Paul, and I was 250 miles away there with a sexual harassment thing. I'm up in Ely, Minnesota, and I was called criminal. I think everyone can remember it, that I was involved in it. I'm 250 miles north. So, I mean, I understand. You didn't hear me taking pick on it or anything like that. I didn't try to take in whatever. I mean, I'll defend myself. I should, because I'm saying, like I said, I'm not there. But I'm okay with, I'm a politician. I guess being called a criminal is part of the thing there. I don't like it, not at all. Especially if I believe I'm innocent. But that would never be part of my decision. My decision would be predicated on the fact that we had a North Soil and Water Board that was able to control their employee, take the efforts that he or she, if they hire someone else, to take and do the people's work, of taking and advising people, of doing those wetland things. Paul has that expertise. He has just taken off on a tangent that's way different than what the mission should be. And so with that, I'll just stop and say, I could actually, and Mr. Chair, I know you brought this initiative to us. I could actually be okay with seeing this initiative go away and watching to next year. I could. But at the same, because I think that the board has heard our complaints as a board in a public fashion, not one commissioner, but a combination thing. That I could be, but like I said, I also could be okay with pulling half the funding with the idea that we're not getting our money's worth there. We're not getting what we think we're supposed to be doing, helping people out there in northern St. Louis County. And we have them. I'll stop with this. we have the perfect example. South St. Louis County in the soil and water, North St. Louis County soil and water. 0 complaints from my office, bitched about all the time up north. So, and not about those officers, about their employee.
I think, and I'll you know, I'm hearing Commissioner Forsman's concerns that I want to make sure too, that we're performing these services out in the community. Commissioner Jewell, I don't receive a lot of complaints from the Central Hillside. I just don't, okay? And you know why I don't? Because I don't serve the Central Hillside, okay? You know, these are legitimate concerns. You did not hear me mention anything about his comments, his anti-mining comments. Were they stupid? No, they were beyond that, okay? I don't even have the word right on the tip of my tongue that would describe what he said. But because the accusation, the stupid accusation I could live with, the criminal one, that one concerns me, okay? But the piece that concerns me the most is the fact that we're not serving the good people of my district and of northern Minnesota that are honestly trying to do the right thing. And it is very concerning to me. I let this go for the entire year that I chaired the board because I did not want to impose my role as chair as somehow chastising this. I waited until this year, till I was no longer chair. I then went in front of the Board of the North Soil and Water. After that meeting, I talked to the chair of the North Soil and Water. And I was assured by the chair that they had an enforcement role, that they were an enforcement entity. I don't believe, again, that our dollars that are specifically put there in the Environmental Trust Fund are dollars that are to an enforcement agency. We have a number of enforcement agencies. The North Soil and Water is supposed to be a technical advisory entity. They are supposed to help people remediate actions that either they or someone else did on property that they own and try and bring it back to a level that is conducive with our clean water standards, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to respect Commissioner Forsman's wishes here, and I'm going to withdraw this motion for today. I'm doing that right now. I'm going to withdraw this motion for today, and you can certainly make your comments. I'll turn it back over to Board Chair Dahlberg. I'm going to withdraw this motion for today, but I will tell you that I am going to be watching very, very closely over the next 6 months, and when this comes back up for funding for next year, if I have not seen a substantive change, I will be back here and I will be asking you and all of the Southern Commissioners to understand that we live it up north, okay? And if you had a problem down here and you brought me it, I would be listening to the fact that there was a significant problem. This is a constituent problem. It has nothing to do with his disdain for mining, okay? I know that you don't agree with the mining per se. That's fine. But this is about Lakeshore. This is about moms and pops, okay? It's about a guy who wanted to put a pond back where the pond had been drained some 30, 35 years ago for farming. The guy wanted to put the pond back, wanted to eliminate the ditches and restore the pond, and was basically told that it was too trivial for him to work on. I'm sorry, any constituent concern of mine, none of them are trivial. This is very important to this individual to restore that natural landscape, and to get told that that's too trivial while he's out doing enforcement actions. No, that's not what it's about. So I'm withdrawing it, Mr. Chair. I'm going to return it back to you. All right.
Commissioner Dahlberg, before he withdrew it, I had a comment. So if I could please.
He's chairing it, and I just want all commissioners to be mindful. I made a commitment to another commissioner that I want to get us out of here. So at 12:40, and we do have some business in front.
I withdraw my.
Commissioner Dahlberg.
Well, it's
point of order.
Okay.
So one of the things that is noted in this, and I think will be important, is Commissioner Nelson identified 6 or 7 items, all of which he says have not been completed. It's my understanding that the contract with the North St. Louis Soil and Water Board is monitored by the planning department, and I'd ask that we receive a report from the planning department as to the complaints they've got, whether or not these are being enforced. And I'd be very interested in comments, written comments from the board which oversees this regarding, we've heard from you that you are accomplishing things, and be very interested in written comments to us about what has been accomplished so that we can make a decision on this. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. I know we got some good news in front of us, and I hate to rush that, but I'd like to get us out of here in the next few minutes here. And to speak to your point, you're free to, of course, Commissioner Jewell, always to work with administration on their request information, or our Director Hayden. So next, we have 2 items here, and it's under Commissioner Jewell's Central Management and Intergovernmental Committee.
Chair Dahlberg, I'm very excited about this first of the items underneath Central Management and Intergovernment, the appointment of a new Land and Mineral Director. I am told by administration that the interviews went very well, and one of our own, Mark Weber, came out as the top choice, and I look to administration to frame us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, the action before the board today is a request to appoint Mark Weber as the St. Louis County Land and Minerals Director. Mark is currently working in the role of interim director. He's been with the county for past 27 years, all of which I think were with the Land Department and now Land and Minerals Department. So to say he's a seasoned veteran is an understatement. He's worked in a number of progressively responsible positions, as is noted in the board letter. I would say by background about the process, we did do quite a regional expanse outreach in terms of attracting candidates. We had a good candidate pool. We had some very solid interviews with a short list of 5 candidates, all very qualified. Mark stood out amongst that group as well, and I want to thank both Deputy Administrator Eckenberg and Director Hayden for participating in that panel, and Jim Gottschall, our Director of Human Resources, for really helping to ensure that the process attracted the right type of candidates and opportunity to talk to folks about this position. Nonetheless, we are in a position here to have somebody who has really a broad array of experience in all of our resource management programs, from the forest resource side to the minerals management side, and to the many points in between that go with this very challenging but vital role. We believe, administration believes and has the support of not only Chair Commissioner Jewell, but I would note that the Natural Resources Chair has been very supportive of this as well. We will continue to focus on key initiatives that this board has provided direction on in the areas of forest and minerals management. We look forward to an even more aggressive partnership with planning and community development as we work to integrate a community development perspective and community partnerships and integration of and expansion of the use of technology, all with a goal ultimately of maximizing our property tax base, which should help all of our taxpayers when that piece of the pie grows, it lessens the costs and burdens for everybody. But we're excited about that relationship as well. I will note that the starting salary is proposed is consistent with the current management compensation plan at a grade or step 4 within grade 27, our department head scale. And I'm very pleased personally and professionally to bring the appointment of Mark Weber as the next Land and Minerals Department Director to the board.
I would move it, Mr. Chair.
I'll support it.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Can-
Okay, are there any comments?
Mr. Chair, I would really like to have a word or two. You know, I would note that our former land commissioner stopped by just for this occasion, but Mr. Chair, could we ask our newly appointed our candidate here, who is shortly to be appointed, to come before this board?
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I would note that he did not dress in his flannels for today, which I chastised him for earlier.
Yes.
Mark, welcome. Congratulations, and I guess any words about this? Or?
Well, just a few. I'm very honored to be appointed at this position. It's been a goal of mine. I've been with the department for many years, as Administrator Gray said. It's been a goal of mine for many years, and boy, it shows if you work hard, you're responsible, sometimes things work out. I really appreciate your support from all of you. It's great to have Bob Krebs here. He's been a teacher, he's been a friend. I'm sure he'll continue to be as such, and I'm going to maybe ask him for advice at times if he'll allow it. We have a great staff, and we're going to try and meet your expectations. We'll do our best to meet your expectations. We're going to continue to be a leader in the land and forest and minerals management, and I'm very appreciative. I really appreciate this moment. Thank you.
Before the vote, Mr. Chair, that everybody's clapping for him.
So, yes.
One comment that I go back quite a few years on the comment that I had, and it wasn't even necessary. Actually, it might have even been in the land department, but it was a comment that was made to me at one point when we were appointing a director. And the comment was made by an employee that said, you know, the easiest way to get a job in management in St. Louis County is not to be from St. Louis County. This time, we took somebody from St. Louis County. We've done it several times now in the past several years, and you know what? I think we grow from within, and I think we've grown some great people from within. And no offense to former Commissioner Krebs, because I think that we got one of the best when we got him also, even though he came from far away. So, I mean, but at the same time, it's great to see people. The last comment I'll make is that last time, you know, you were my #1 candidate. I think everyone knew that. And the comment was made to me at that time, you know, if we give him enough time, he certainly is going to make an excellent commissioner. Bob was here 7 years. 7 years should have done it. So
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add that I really was appreciative of the interest level that was helped generated by our stakeholders in the industry. The Forest Industry Association, the Logger and Truckers Associations were the first to come to the plate to say we'll spread the word and to provide input. And I would say too that I've been approached by a number of staff within Land and Minerals, and I've really appreciated their thoughts and hopes and expectations. And I think that we are serving our stakeholders very well with Mr. Weber. We are serving our staff possibly even better with Mr. Weber. We had some great candidates. This is an earned role, and I'm very pleased to be working with him even more so going forward. I know that we look forward to working with Barb Hayden too. And I think there's going to be a tremendous partnership building on what has been, quite frankly, a legacy that was left by Mr. Krebs. We're very appreciative But I'm glad you got the 7-year itch, because we have hopefully at least that with Mr. Weber going forward. And it is nice to have a top candidate from within the ranks. And we actually had 2 internal candidates that were very strong, and we had 3 external candidates. So I was very pleased. Quite frankly, it's always tougher to make those decisions when you have a number of qualified candidates and you have to kind of parse through it. And that said, Mr. Weber clearly earned this appointment, and I'm looking forward to working with him and his vision and organizational thoughts going forward. Thank you.
Other comments or?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jewell, thank you. Since Bob walked into the room, he hasn't wiped a smile off his face. That's a good thing. And he's tan. I would like to thank Administrator Gray and Assistant Director Zackenberg and Mersch for putting forth the effort into interviewing. I'm not sure who else was involved, but it's nice to have those quality candidates come and want to work for the citizens of St. Louis County. And I have full support in your decision. I've had, service dealings with Mark, owning a hunting shack has been superb. And I'm looking forward to the service that you will be providing to the residents of St. Louis County, just as former Commissioner Crouch did, because our citizens deserve nothing but the best, and it's your time now.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you.
Anything else? I obviously said my piece. Great to have an internal candidate, and fun to watch you step into this, and I'll be excited to work with you. So, congratulations.
Mr. Chair, very briefly. We had common sense. We still have common sense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. With that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. I have one last item. Hopefully this is very quick, is the Minnesota State Auditor Performance Measure Program 2013 report, and I would look to administration to frame it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I'm pleased to bring forward this portion of the agenda. The action before the board is a request to certify the 10 performance measures that the county is implementing at a local level that will meet the requirements of the Council on Local Results and Innovation, which is at the state level through the State Auditor's Office. I'm also very pleased to acknowledge the tremendous leadership role that Deputy Administrator Mersch has had with respect to broadly performance outcomes and continuous improvement. But as we measure our performance, as we look at key indicators, it helps us to make informed decisions, and she's been a champion on that front since my tenure here. The links will also be to our business planning efforts, and quite frankly, I'm very pleased too that the department heads are so willing to be open to continuous improvement ideas and performance measurement. I would note that St. Louis County receives an annual payment of $25,000 for this participation. We use that to help support our time and investment in developing, reviewing these measures, but also, quite frankly, to help some of the sounding boards, one of which is the biannual residential survey that we conduct. It helps fund and support that investment. But we have some things to cover here. A handout's been distributed, and I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Administrator Mersch with the Chair's permission at this point.
Yes.
Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I think Administrator Gray covered this program. For those of you on the board, this is the 3rd year that St. Louis County has participated. So the format, the resolution, the measures look very similar to previous years. I was appointed to this legislative council this past year, so I got to see a little bit more kind of the purpose behind it from the state auditor's perspective. And I think there really is a goal towards transparency in government finances. that's certainly a goal that we have and that we all share here. So this report is to be, posted on our website, part of our reporting, part of our budget initiatives. So beyond that, again, we're well positioned for this. This is most of the data that we already are tracking and discussing on department levels. So the data is what it is. We try to include past year's data to make it informative. I think that really helps me look at where we're at. So to that, to the extent possible, those are the measures that are required of counties. And we basically were able to provide all of them, so that should position us well. With that, I'll take any questions, or I certainly can take questions next week as well, or during the week, because I know you're just getting this today.
Mr. Chair, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr.
I'm
Chair,
sorry.
if we may, I have to tell you that I got from Linnea the copies of individual districts on the survey, and I found it really, really interesting and very informative. I'd like to spend some time at this and maybe get an opportunity to bring this back at a, give Linnea a good reason to come to Ely and talk to us perhaps about this.
I always love to communicate.
There you go. But I certainly would like to take a look at it. I guess I'm just excited to see some of these numbers and maybe even highlight some of these numbers. Number of veterans seen by County Veteran Service Office, okay? From 14.5 to nearly 16.5. 2,000 more veterans. That shows that partnership that we made with the state and with the federal government and relocating our office there and the good work of that office. Just